Okay, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order of the Jackson County Board of Commissioners today, January 18th, 2022. First item of business is the approval of the agenda. Do we have any additions or changes to the agenda? Hearing none then, do I have a motion to approve them as presented?
So moved.
All right, I have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any question or discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next is the approval of the minutes. We got a copy of the minutes from our regular meeting on January the 4th. After having had a chance to review these in advance, it's distributed by the clerk. What's the pleasure of the board?
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Is there a second? Second. Any question or discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Under our administrative reports, I'll report that County Manager Don Adams and I both attended the first meeting of the new regional VIA board that was held this past week. It was held in person at Region A's office suite for those that wanted to meet in person, and then myself and several others who had conflicts attended by Zoom. But it was a good first meeting. We had a good discussion, went through the new bylaws of the organization. The big item of business, I guess, was the selection of a chair. And Ronnie Beal, Commissioner from Macon County, who has a long history of service in this region on the mental health issue, was overwhelmingly suggested as the chair of the Regional Advisory Board. And then the vice chair, also someone with a long-standing history of service in this region on health issues, mental health issues, was Ira Dove from Haywood County, who is their head of the Department of Health and Human Services for Haywood County. Ira also had served previously as a DSS director, and he's also served as a county manager. So he brings to the table a lot of experience and history. So those two gentlemen agreed to serve in those capacities, and it was a good first start to the meeting, and I'll let Don add anything in a minute when his report concerning any additional stuff. But that was sort of the brunt of it, but it was a good start. We're going to meet quarterly. Next meeting coming up in March.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Did they say anything, is there any progress with the possibility of the Old Angel Hospital?
This was just a
I'm sorry. Okay,
meeting.
never mind. Yeah. Okay.
And I also would like just to extend my appreciation to all our staff. I know our state employees, the DOT, utility crews, Duke Energy, all the various emergency services. I know this storm event that we just came out of this past weekend, it could have been a lot worse. Thankfully, it was not. I know there were some high snow totals here in the county. I think down towards the southern end of the county, it's where we saw the highest snow totals, over a foot. But here again, it seemed to be, for the most part, a fairly quiet event. Not a lot of major problems, and so I just do appreciate all the hard work and effort put by so many that do those things on a regular basis when times get tough and they're called upon to do such. But thanks to all those folks. And as a note, I'll just note that I did sign the end to the declaration of the state of emergency that'll go into effect as of 4 p.m. today. So I went ahead and signed that just a few moments ago, and that'll be publicized for a 4 p.m. ending. Commissioner Woody, I'll start with you today. Do you have any reports?
Yes. And I do want to just echo your appreciation to our emergency management team, to Manager Adams, and all that worked so hard. And I feel too like I know Duke Energy went to great lengths to in the past year to cut trees, clear lines, and I think that really made an impact. And so we certainly appreciate their efforts before this event.
Absolutely.
And those prevention efforts are important. I participated this morning in a Zoom with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Environmental Committee. And just a couple things that came up that we want to have on our radar, and I know some of you are already aware of some of these things, but particularly with sewer water treatment and storm water treatment, the American Rescue Plan gave the state money, just like they gave each county money. And there's $1.6 billion in grants going to counties in North Carolina. We can apply for some of that money, and for water treatment, wastewater treatment, and stormwater treatment, they're going to do $100 million for that, and that's a new category that they have. And so I've talked to Commissioner Jones about some issues up in the Cashers area with that issue. So it was just real encouraging to hear that. And these are grants, not loans. And they encouraged us that now is the time to apply, because they are going to open up applications May 2nd. And if we had projects needing, like maybe horseshoe sewer treatment, those kinds of things, but I mean horse pasture, I'm sorry, said the wrong word. So that was just very encouraging. And they will also, they have special money in the bipartisan infrastructure law, which is a separate pot of money to replace lead pipes. So that's something that we can be aware of as well if people have lead pipes. There's definitely money for that. And then the last part was on roadside litter, which, as you know, we take very seriously here in Jackson County. And I'll just report that they didn't say anything that we weren't already doing. So that made me feel good that we're up on all that's going on, and that we can just keep on and try to do the best we can with those efforts. The problem doesn't go away, but we certainly can make it less of a problem. In 2021, the state contract people picked up 13,017,720 pounds of litter in North Carolina. So it's sad. There was a lot of talk about prevention and all, but the bottom line is we need to all be examples of taking care of our community as we do.
Very good. Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes, sir. Just want to take it off of mute. Just wanted to mention again the thanks to the staff, county staff, the first responders, and particularly that to Duke Energy on 2 different times throughout the storm event. I lost power where I live, and each time the projection was multiple days. And the first time was only for 6 hours, and the second was only for 2 hours, and it was a 24-hour. So there's just the response time and the kind of having those extra crews brought in on standby from neighboring states was so good. And you were right, it was a relatively quiet event in the southern end of the county versus what it could have been. It was a very heavy, wet, dense snow with wind, and it was concerning. Just want to hands out to Duke Energy for what they did in their response time.
Very good.
Thank you.
Commissioner Stridlin?
Chairman, I would like to just echo what you were saying. Thank you to all the first responders, Sheriff's Department, Police Department, everybody in.
It was a great team effort.
Great team effort, yeah.
Absolutely, for sure. Okay, Mr. Adams, County Manager's report.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a formal report today. I'm going to move my formal reports to the first meeting of the month. All of my monthly meetings for our construction projects and so forth, like for the Green Energy Park is always the day after this meeting, and so I'm behind on information, so I'm going to move my more formal report to that. I do want to just follow up and say, also thanks to your county attorney that was drafting and working with those state of emergency agreements over the weekend and working with us, and our emergency management coordinator did open up the emergency operations center, and I do want to thank all the volunteers that go to that. Obviously, we thank the rescue squads and fire departments for responding on scene, but we do have volunteers from social services to the health department, so forth, that man our phone lines to help provide information to the public. So I'd like to thank them also for volunteering. I believe they went till 10 p.m. on Saturday and went to 5 p.m. yesterday, the Emergency Operations Center, specifically the volunteers for the call center. So thank you.
Did you have any additional comments about the VIA?
No, I just look forward to working with the group.
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
absolutely. Okay. Commissioner Dietz,
Richard,
how are you?
how are you?
Good, good.
Chairman?
Do you have,
Sorry I'm late.
that's fine, that's
Hell, I'm
fine.
always late.
Do you
I
have-
apologize to all of you. You too.
Do you have anything you want to report on? We're just concluding our report section.
I went down and visited, went down to Bryson City and, visited the ladies, what's the name of that?
Southwest Commission?
No. Hawthorne Heights, I'm sorry.
Yes, Hawthorne Heights, yeah.
I went down to Hawthorne Heights and we did an audit down there of their program. And, I hadn't been there before. I don't know if y'all have. I was at one of their other facilities one time, and, it's just awesome to listen to them and, what they're doing, and, they don't have but 9 beds down there, and most of the time they're full. And of course, like everywhere else, they'd like to have more if they could. And, it's an awesome thing they're doing. They got a real nice facility. I don't know how we can help them in some ways. They'd like to buy that facility, correct?
Yes, I'm sure they'll work.
And then, situation they're all right now, and it's too much to get into at this moment. They're not able to do that, and it's basically because the people that own it, which is not, it's hope.
Children's don't laugh.
And, hopefully that can happen. They had a thing or two that would be very minimal as far as cost, just like a thing that put their trash cans in outside so the dogs and the bears and whatever wouldn't get in it. Just one small metal buildings. And I promised her that maybe we could do that. Sorry, Don. But I don't think it'd be very expensive. We could look into it, and if, you know, I can just be something as a county we can do to help them.
Okay.
They right now have to store all that in their garage, and it doesn't smell real well sometimes. Anyway, I had a real good visit. It's real good. I think it's a good thing we've got going, and if we could look at that in the next week or so, maybe help them with that. It'd just be a little thing we can help them with and show them our appreciation for what they're doing.
Very good. All right, thank you, sir.
How many counties do they serve? Jackson, Swain, and,
Jackson, Swain, and now they got Clay County,
oh, okay,
and they got the reservation some,
Yeah.
but mostly they take
Okay.
care of themselves.
sure. Thank you. That's a great group. Mhm.
Thank y'all.
I don't think we have anyone signed up for informal comments that I'm aware of. So we're going to move on then to our first business section. This will be the consent agenda. And first is the finance report for December 2021, and we recognize Ms. Fox.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'll go over the highlights for the month of December. The revenues collected to date, $45,448,818. That's 62.17% budget. So it's over 12.17% for the period. The expenditures to date, $34,253,900. $285,845. That's 48.68% of budget. So it's under 1.32%. The revenues were 11,162,973 more than the expenditures. The ad valorem taxes collected are at 87.41% of budget at $32,120,889. The motor vehicles taxes collected, $695,094. That's 47.31% of budget. The prior year taxes collected, $419,995. That's 46.65% of budget. The sales and use tax distribution in the amount of $1,690,938 was received for the month of December, and that represented September sales. The amount is 8.67% more than we received in December of 2020. The Article 46 distribution was $193,542. The average increase for the entire fiscal year at this point is 14.2%. Landfill disposal fees collected, $1,892,367. That's 85.86% of budget. And the prior year disposal fees, $57,786, which is 105.07% more of budget. The growth revenues we're tracking all are above the percentage that is expected for the month of December. You see a big increase in planning, and environmental health is 28.74% over, and registered deeds is 21.66% over. The general fund contingency balance at the end of December was $1,460,075.31. I'd be glad to answer any questions on the report.
Okay, next is item 2, the budget amendments. There are 2 of them.
I have 2 amendments. The first one is general fund. It's an increase of $42,885.16. The biggest part of that, of $41,493.12, was for an insurance settlement for a vehicle that was totaled, and $1,392.04 for the Links program in DSS. The second one is a grant that we received from the state of North Carolina, Department of Environmental Quality, for backyard composting in the amount of $9,996.63.
Any question about this amendments?
Well, on that backyard composting, is that for citizens?
Yes, they have the bins that you can purchase
Yeah, we got one. They're real nice.
Where do you purchase?
from solid waste.
Yeah.
Okay. So
And they turn,
the citizens contact solid waste?
Yeah, I've seen those
yeah,
things.
they're really
Okay.
nice, very nice.
Thank
How
you.
much are those, Darlene? Do you know?
I think it was $43.
Yeah, it was
Huh, okay.
less than $50 a piece.
No. Mm.
They took the grant and they purchased them, which defrays the cost on the actual composters, and I know they ran an ad in the newspaper. Had lots of success. They sold out quickly, then reordered.
They did, and they have reordered, and I think they still have some available.
Thank you.
Very nice. Critter proof.
All right, well, thank you, Ms. Fox.
Thank you.
Next is our tax collector and refund reports for December 2021. I recognize Ms. Henson, our tax collector.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
So for the month of December, for the county taxes, we collected $8,330,695. For the delinquent taxes, we collected $121,498. The total deposited for December was $8,882,494.08. And also for the month, we had refunds of $693.75, overpayment refunds of $25,440.74, and releases of $460.84. Any questions?
Questions for Ms. Henson?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
Ms. Henson, that overpayment refund of $25,440.74, that seems a little bit high. And could you maybe go over maybe why that is and a couple of other examples of overpayment?
Yeah, this time of year, they're usually a little higher because the majority of it is like people that have escrow accounts. And then we send out the bills in August. So the taxpayer goes ahead and sends in their payment in August. And then in November or December, and sometimes even into January, we'll get escrow payments. So that creates an overpayment. So we're having to send the payment back to either the taxpayer or the mortgage company.
I see.
Oh, that makes sense. Thank you.
And another common form of overpayment might be just,
If someone is making monthly payments and they're just not keeping track of how much they do owe, and they might send in an extra payment. Or sometimes it's maybe even if someone sells the property and the closing attorney pays, and then also either the buyer or seller pays.
okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, we've heard all three items under the consent agenda. Do I have a motion then to approve these three items?
I'll make a motion to approve the three items.
Okay, have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any question or discussion about these items? Hearing none then, Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Commissioner Stribling,
Yes?
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Woody,
Yes.
Commissioner Deeds, Chairman McMahon.
Yes, motion carries. Next is our new business. First item under new business is a discussion about broadband. And to give this update information, Ms. Tiffany Henry, our Economic Development Director. Welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
All right, so I've got a little short presentation. Mr. Adams and I have been meeting regularly, and I just really wanted to kind of give you an update and an overview of what's going on in the state, and specifically how that will impact us here in Jackson County for broadband. And so a couple of things just to kind of give you a broad state overview. Governor Cooper's budget plans to invest $1 billion of American Rescue Plan dollars, an additional $30 million of state funds into these following areas to achieve digital equity in the state of North Carolina. And so breaking this down, infrastructure, that's a total of $971 million. $380 million of those funds will go to the Great Grant Program. And to put that into perspective, in years past, that has been about $15 million for the year. So just to kind of show you the influx of funding. $400 million will be for a new program that's called Completing Access to Broadband. We love our acronyms, so we call that the CAB program. $90 million will be for stopgap solutions. $100 million for Broadband Make Ready. And so this is sort of that pole replacement program that was also in the state budget. And then $1 million in broadband mapping. And so that is for the infrastructure itself. And then there's an additional awareness and digital equity literacy. That's $50 million that will be going towards those efforts. And so I wanted to just really give you an overview and just so you're prepared for some of the conversations that we're going to be having in the near future. And so overview of these programs, Great Grants. This is not a new program, but they are changing it a little bit this year because of this influx of additional funding for it. Some things are going to stay the same, some things are going to change, and we still don't really know all of the details on it, but I felt like it was really important to go ahead and get this in front of you. So, for example, the internet service providers are the applicants for this project or for this grant funding. That's not changed. That's always been the case. This program, the guidelines are expected and anticipated to roll out January 31st. Over the last 2 weeks, we've been getting consistent updates. And so January 31st is when they anticipate rolling out the program guidelines, some mapping, and what that's going to look like. The applications from the service providers are expected to be due April the 4th. And this program, as it has been in the past, the target areas for this is the what you often see is the 25/3. So that's the 25 down upload and 3 download speed. So you're going to have obviously a really large portion of Jackson County that covers that area. The difference is we also have the RDOF that we've talked about in months past. We won't talk about that specific program today. We have some new ones, but I bring that up because those also will be impacting those areas as well in Jackson County. Currently with the great grants, we don't anticipate any cap on those award amounts. Again, we don't know until January 31st. They're going to roll out the great grant program first, see what the level of interest is going to look like, and then they're going to roll out the CAB program. This is new, so they're working through a lot of those details as we speak. And so what we do know at this point is this will be a partnership between the local municipalities and the NCDIT office. And so we will be strategic, or have the opportunity to be strategic in saying this area is not served by whether it's RDOF or Great Grant dollars. We want to make sure that we're impacting this community, this neighborhood. And so that's where we can be really strategic in those applications moving forward. Also, as we have talked about in the past, anytime we spend our dollars, we have to have an RFP, but this one's going to be a little bit different. We anticipate this looking like a joint RFP with the NCDIT office. It's going to be a little bit different. We don't 100% know that there will be an RFP, but that's what they're telling us at this point. We also, like I said before, will work with our liaisons in the NCDIT office to help us really identify those targeted areas that aren't currently being served by any other programs. So will allow us to really be strategic and sort of hone in on those really hard to get to areas.
Let me ask that question then.
Yes.
Is NCDIT, and that stands for?
North Carolina Department of Information Technology.
Okay. Is this the group then that's sort of overseeing, or at least making sure that we're not duplicating services? Or because I know we had the presentation from Charter, and and they've identified all these particular homes that are underserved, and I'm
Yes.
excited that everybody's wanting to make sure that everybody's getting, but the same group that the Great Grant can target are the same group that Charter's supposed to be targeting. I want to make sure that everybody's not targeting the same people.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And so RDOF, that was an FCC reverse auction. And so those were underserved census blocks, and there were only portions of those that were eligible for that application. And so they've already sort of identified those areas. Now, while, Mr. Adams and I had a meeting with Charter actually last week, they've not finalized and signed their long forms, but they are moving forward. And so that's good news for Jackson County. We don't think, and again, that's been questions that we've all asked, I think Heather, Dawn and I have all been making sure that we're not duplicating efforts. We're not trying to, put backbone for several providers to the same home. That's not necessary. But we do think, and that's one of the questions that we've been asked is, FCC didn't really do us any favors with the RDOF because it sort of tied up these blocks a little bit. And so that's where these great grants are going to be able to sort of hit the areas that aren't being served. We don't know a lot with regards to how that's going to look, but that's the whole nation is in the same boat, actually.
I do want to point out a couple of things about this is fluid. This is literally when Tiff and I had a conversation, we were debating on whether or not we were ready to bring this before you, but because of the timing, we just felt necessary we needed to get some information in front of you because in the next couple of weeks, you may be asked questions. These programs may be released, so that is the point of today's conversation. But I do want to point out the great grant versus the CAB. The CAB, and I don't want to jump too far ahead of what you have on your presentation, but there's guaranteed amounts of monies that are coming to Jackson County for the CAB program, all right? And so if you really look at these two programs, the great grant program is driven by the internet provider, meaning they're going to go to the state and apply for things that make sense to them, versus the CAB program, it really is designed for us to go through a process so we as a county can prioritize where we wish to invest monies. And so as you saw, it did require a match from the county and things of that nature. So this is something that Tiffany and I have been having conversations about. How do we line up the RFP process with county prioritizations, especially if there's any conversation about county matching these programs, whether it be through ARPA monies, general fund dollars, whatever monies we're talking about. So again, the great grant, you can see, is driven by the internet company. The CAB program can be driven by the county and the county's priorities. So.
You had a question.
I'm not even sure the term to use, but you hear a lot about internet speed and 5G and all this. One concern I've had someone ask me about is if they come in and provide a service from a grant and it's not the highest speed, what recourse do our citizens have then?
So all of these grants, the GREAT grant and the CAB program specifically are, and this is, going back to this one, you can see this is Governor Cooper's sort of initiative, and his priority is to make sure that they have internet speeds of at least 100 upload and 20 down. And that also is for 98% of North Carolina. And the goal for both GREAT grant and the CAB program is to be 100 upload and download symmetrical. So while we know in rural areas such as ours, it's going to be really hard for them to do that 120, but that's the goal. A minimum of that with the goal of expanding to 100 symmetrical.
Okay,
Does that help?
it does answer. Thank you.
Okay.
Excuse me one second.
No, you're fine.
Start with a few pilot counties, March and April.
Mm-hmm.
Pilot counties in
They've not determined those. They've not even determined those. One of the things that they said on a webinar they had on Thursday of last week, and back to what Don said, this is very fluid, because the NCDIT office is in Raleigh, and they're covering 100 counties, and they have to be a partner on this project. They can't have 100 RFP going out at the same time, so they're going to have to do these in phases, and they don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet. So they said that they hope to identify several pilot counties and then start to phase them towards, and I would hope, that they're going to start in those areas that are the most unserved. So that will give us a little bit of an advantage with regards to timing. Did you have a question?
Yes, thank you. The match, is there a certain percent for counties to match funding projects for the CAB?
So we don't know 100% yet. With the GREAT grant, in years past, it's been 70-30. And again, 70% from the state, 30% from the service provider, while the county could provide a portion of that 30%. That will look a little bit different depending on where we end up. We do also, and again, we're still waiting on some final guidance. We have been told, ARPA funds should not be used for the GREAT grant program, but it is okay to be used for the CAB program. So while general fund dollars may be for GREAT grant, ARPA funds for the CAB program, and again, it's still fluid. Do you, Heather, have anything to add to that?
No, they're just
Okay.
really careful about
Yeah.
double dipping,
Yeah.
and that's something we're hearing consistently, and that's why ARPA funds from the county won't be able to be used for some of this.
And so, again, going back to sort of potential opportunities for Jackson County, great grants. That could be a letter of support. It could be some possible matching funds. This is a highly competitive program, so you will they get scored. And so if a county provides a letter of support, they get a certain number of points for that. If they provide any matching dollars, they obviously get more points for that. So that's just something to consider. And again, that final guidance, we anticipate that being available on January 31st when they roll out all of those guidelines. And part of the timing is because of the final ruling from Treasury for the ARPA funds. So they're trying to match and align, state legislature and ARPA rulings and all that. So, and then also with the CAB program, that one, like I said before, that one will be an RFP with NCDIT, and so that will be something, like Mr. Adams said, we can be strategic and we can bid that out, do an RFP that way, and identify those target areas. And again, back to one of the questions Commissioner Deeds asked, not all counties will go at the same time, and then how we support that will look very different. So each county has up to $4 million of matching funds available to us. So that's where the ARPA conversation comes into play, is how do we support that as we move forward?
So I want to, so the dilemma that discussions that Tiffany and I are having on this is, and that's the reason we wanted to bring to the board, because there's pros and cons to everything that we're presenting to you. So as you can see under the GREAT grant, it says the letter of support, which we've actually provided letter of support before for GREAT grant applications, or possible matching funds to the applicants. Well, the dilemma obviously we run into is if we're doing matching funds to the applicant, then in order for us to do that, we, as you all I think are aware, we have strict guidelines in how counties can fund these types of projects, which requires going out for a request for proposals. So the thing about that is that if you don't know what your priorities are, meaning if you don't have a priority list, it starts making it difficult to go out for requests for proposals. Whereas if you look at the CAB program is specifically designed to take the county through a process so that we can decide where our priorities are and where our matching funds should be. And so the reality is that request for proposals, I would imagine, is going to be pretty detailed. We're going to have a process in which we can go out and we can identify areas in which, if the county wishes to participate financially, we would prioritize. Whereas the GREAT grant side of things, that is really driven by the provider, not necessarily, not completely but not by the county's priorities. And so I guess the dilemma that we run into, it's difficult to do a request for proposals to allow ourselves to be able to match these GREAT grants when we don't have certain items in place. And I think I want to point that out to the board because, again, January 31st is when this program becomes available, okay? And then ultimately, we know we've got local providers that are interested in the GREAT grant process. And so I guess that's the dilemma. What is the timeline on, say, what is the quickest we could go through an RFP?
Well, and we've had an RFP, sort of, Heather and I have worked through that, and we've had that on the shelf and ready for, well, let's say since the NTIA. And so we've had that on the shelf and ready. We've received specific guidelines a couple of weeks ago that basically said, if you've not issued an RFP to this at this point, hold off and wait, because there may be some specific language that we need to include in that. So we've got it on, and we've been told that for probably the last 2 months, I would say. And so we were waiting on the state budget. What does that language need to look like? And so, yes, we have one sort of on the shelf and ready to go for the GREAT grant. But we do need to still wait on that final guideline to see what additional language might need to be in that. And then for the CAB program, that will be a joint RFP, and we anticipate them providing us that RFP from Raleigh. So there'll be 2 different ones.
And so the dilemma you run into, there's a limited set of resources from our end in this conversation, all right? So whatever that is, that hasn't been decided. So the reason I want to point that out is because let's just say we choose to move forward with an RFP process if we have some providers wanting us to match. Well, then that potentially could limit our ability when we start talking about the CAB program. And so the timing of this, I want to point that out because the timing of this, I like the CAB program process. And what I mean by that, that's going to allow for us to go through a prioritization process that would really let us target county dollars to certain areas. But I do think there may be some requests or some conversations about whether or not the county wishes to participate in the great grant process. Is that a correct statement? And then that could be us turning around pretty quickly if we choose to move forward with an RFP process under the great grant, understanding that if we choose to match great grants, then that could impact our ability to match CAB programs.
A lot of unknowns.
Yeah. But it's important for us to get this in front of you so that you're starting to kind of think, what resources do we want to sort of set aside to support this effort? And because when we need to go, we need to run. So that's part of it. And
Up until this time, have we matched any of the great grant that we have?
not to my knowledge.
We have not done that yet.
No.
So
Well, then my understanding, let me finish this. My understanding is that when these companies apply to expand, they do it where they're going to get the biggest bang for their buck, which is more populated areas, correct? So maybe our priority should be to the really sparsely or remote areas where they're not going to, where these other companies aren't going to.
Right. And it's also really important to understand that these two programs are fiber to the home. They're not,
Right.
Wireless technology. These are fiber to the home. These are in-mile users. So that's part of both of these programs.
Great.
And, the difference between the GREAT grant and the CAB program is that initially the GREAT grant's set up to be a 70-30, 70 grant, 30% from the internet provider. And it says the county can possibly match. The CAB program, there's going to be rules coming out that says if you wish to access these funds, then there will be a required match.
Okay.
Yes.
And so there's a difference between those two sets of rules.
And with $4 million for Jackson County specifically already sort of set aside, we know that we're eligible for that from a state level, but we are responsible for providing some funding matched dollars for that. And we could use ARPA dollars for that match.
Have they indicated when those rules, have they, I can't remember.
February
February?
is what we're being told at this point.
It really is about understanding what that match requirement is.
Yes.
Sounds like timing's got a lot to do with this.
Well, it does, and it's that hurry and wait because we get little snippets all along the way, and we've been sort of waiting. We knew this was coming, we were waiting, and we had a feeling that it would just all at once happen.
So you're gonna hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
And then the only other thing that while I have you here and talking about broadband, I wanted to just quickly give you an update. Some of you may have heard about this, but probably it was shortly after the NTIA grant project that we weren't able to go after. I wasn't notified that Southwestern Commission and Land of Sky both received an NC Partner Connect grant for their region. So Land of Sky and Southwestern Commission, and basically it was first come, first serve. And so out of that, I reached out to all of these partners on the screen, and we were able to deploy public Wi-Fi for downtown Silva, and that actually went live and launched at the end of December. So just kind of wanted to point out the power of partnerships and collaboration. We couldn't have done it without everybody on the screen here. So just wanted to kind of briefly mention that. It was one of those programs where there was a limited amount of money. It was first come, first serve. We knew that we couldn't be the physical agent for that, so I started really trying to push and figure out who could be the physical agent for that and how we can make that happen, who would be the provider. So we worked really hard to try and make that happen. So we're really excited. The sustainability is one of the most critical pieces of that. So super excited about that. And then lastly, as we continue to move into these RFPs, these grant application discussions, this is the broadband survey. It is on the Jackson County homepage. So when you have conversation with, residents of Jackson County, please have them complete the survey. They can do it in multiple locations. It doesn't have to. So it connects to their Wi-Fi and it tests the speed. And it's really important. It also takes into consideration cell phones. So please push this out through your social media, through your connections. Please help us push this out, because this is really going to help us drive some of these other conversations with the CAB program and others. So, hey. Yes, sir.
What are the boundaries for that downtown Wi-Fi?
So it goes from the fountain to right about Jackson General, Alba, and then it goes to Bridge Park. That was one of the critical components for me as I was, talking to Travis at Sci-Fi and Julie at the Chamber, is we wanted to make sure that we supported farmers markets that are always down there in Bridge Park, that they have the ability to use credit card processing machines and they have the Wi-Fi to be able to do that, as well as any events, concerts in the creek and things like that. So it does stretch to Bridge Park.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Tiffany.
You're welcome.
Good job.
Being ready.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is item 5, the Cooperative Extension state raises, the county match for that. Mr. Adams?
Yes, sir, we do have, I want to make sure that, we do have Mr. Hawk here, so I'll defer to Mr. Hawk. They basically, what they have in front of them is this generalized sheet.
Okay, thanks, Tom.
And the amount is 2323.
Right, yeah. Good afternoon. So yeah, what we've requested, as we mentioned last week, is a 2.5% raise on the county portion with a 2.5% raise on the state portion. And we're Ascending County, so we're requesting that addition to match the state. So that's the proposal. And it comes out to $2,323 extra annual salary to the Jackson Extension.
Okay. And we heard this item in our work session where we reviewed it in more detail. What would be the pleasure of the board concerning this request?
I move that we grant the request.
Okay, have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any other comments or questions? Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Commissioner Deeds?
Yes.
Commissioner Woody?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Stribling?
Yes.
Chairman McMahon?
Yes, motion carries. Thank you, Rob.
Thank you, and the staff appreciates it very much. Thanks, Don.
Next is item 6, the municipal grant applications. Mr. Adams?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. This is also a follow-up from the work session. You do have enclosed in your packets the proposed municipal grant applications. As you recall, I believe Commissioner Jones brought up that we do have some funds left over because we had 3 out of the 4 municipalities apply. At this point, I believe it was agreed upon that additional 5,000 would just remain in reserve until another project may or may not be found.
Okay.
Otherwise,
Okay. So that is the request we're hearing from staff, that we just go ahead and move forward with these 3 applications that have been submitted. Then we can, in a future date, potentially find other ways to use that additional money in this account for other public use where the public as a whole benefits. So would someone like to put forward a motion to approve the 3 applications?
I move that we approve the 3 applications submitted by our municipalities.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any question or discussion? Madam Clerk?
Commissioner Stribling?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Woody?
Yes.
Commissioner Deeds?
Yes.
Chairman McMahon?
Yes, motion carries. Next is the fiscal year 2022 to 2023 budget calendar. I know Mr. Adams presented that to us at the work session as well. Hope everyone's had a chance to review those dates, specifically those special dates, the additional meetings that are outside the norm of our regular schedule. Any additional comments, Mr. Adams?
No, sir.
Was there a motion then to approve this tentative budget calendar that will be published and presented to the public so that we can go ahead and start lining up these meetings?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Any question or discussion?
The word there was tentative.
Well, some of the dates are fluid because it's like, gives you a range.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, the ones that are set in stone or written here are pretty much go ahead and put on the calendar. There's always a chance we may have to change one due to special circumstances, and then there's some of them we may not have to have, or.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Madam Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Commissioner Deeds?
Yes.
Commissioner Woody?
Yes.
Commissioner Jones?
Yes.
Commissioner Stribling?
Yeah.
Chairman McMahon?
Yes, motion carries.
I got a question on that municipal grant applications. Mr. Adams, will you be communicating with the folks with Dillsboro or to let them know that they were approved?
Yeah, yes, sir. I normally have Angie send something to them stating approval.
In upcoming couple months, the TDA is going to have, they're going to show out or show how entities can request grant funding from the TDA.
Okay.
And they're working on their procedure right now. I was just thinking those restrooms for Dillsboro that might come into a potential grant request for the existing funds for that, the $4,000 extra on the bathroom. It might be something to just communicate to Ms. Coffey that there's a possibility in the next couple of months.
Okay. Yes, sir.
So,
Next is item 8, retention schedules. This is the 2021 updates. I recognize our attorney, Ms. Baker.
Thank you. Let me get this pulled up. So, as a county, we generate a lot of public records. We all of our emails, of course, are a form of public record. All of our paperwork, whether it's digital, hard copy, and so if you, without these retention schedules that I'm going to talk about for just a minute, we are not allowed to destroy anything without specific permission from the North Carolina Department of Natural and Cultural Resources. And obviously it'd be a burden to have to ask them every time we want to get rid of insignificant records from 20 years ago. So a way to work with them on that is this retention schedule. And so every few years or longer, the last time we were asked to update this was in 2019. Before that, Angie doesn't even have records. It was a long time before that. So it might be just a few years, or it might be a long time where they update these retention schedules, and then they send them to us. And if we as a county adopt them, and then all of our departments adopt them as well, then we can get rid of older records that meet the retention schedule. And obviously some, if you look through the link that's online, through the retention schedule, some you can never get rid of. Others you can, mostly after 3 years is probably the most common time frame, but there are some that's longer, some that's shorter. So by adopting this, it allows us to do that. There are 2 schedules here. The first one I pulled up here is the general record schedule. This one is really talking about your administration records, your HR records, legal, risk management, budget, those types of records. And so what you have in your packet is this table of contents and then the executive summary, which if you want to just read one thing to know about this, you can just read this executive summary, and it's the most helpful thing in here. And then you can go on behind this. If you look at online, it's got the whole schedule here for all of those departments I just mentioned. So also we have the second tab here is the program the program record schedule. And this really talks about everything else, emergency management, planning, permitting, all the other departments are handled here, and it's got their schedules are here. And then if this is adopted, the clerk will send this out to all of these departments, and you start sending on these schedules, and they will update their existing schedules to incorporate the updates that were sent out, and they will all sign off on them as well. And then we'll all have our schedule set for when we can destroy documents. And I can answer any questions if you have, but what we're looking for is approval of both of these schedules.
All right, do you have any questions?
Here under destructions, it says they can be burned, shredded, I guess recycled in acid vats to make pulp. How do we do it?
Each department has their own way. I think probably shredding is the most common way, you know, if they're working on a schedule, but that's probably what most do, but everybody does it a little differently.
And then that shredded can be recycled?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Well, yes. We checked on that at some point. And yes, I think that we asked the shred truck if that can be recycled, and the answer was yes.
That's good to know. Thank you.
So at this time, we'll entertain a motion to approve the retention schedules 2021 updates, and this is both for the general records and the program records for both sets of retention schedules. Would someone like to make a motion?
So move.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions or discussion? If not, Madam Clerk, if you'd call the roll, please.
Commissioner Stribling,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones.
Yes.
Commissioner Woody,
Yes.
Commissioner Deeds,
Yes.
Chairman McNamara.
Yes, motion carries. Next is our appointment section, and the first appointment is number 9, item number 9. This is a planning board appointment. This would be for District 2, Commissioner Dietz's district. Have you had a chance to follow up on this one, Mr.?
I haven't, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, we'll carry this one over to the next time. We'll move on then to item 10. You should have in your packets a letter from Rusty Ellis, our Parks and Recreation Director, and there comes a recommendation to appoint Mark Ellison to the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board for a 3-year term. What would be the pleasure of the board concerning this request?
I make a motion that we approve the appointment of Mark Ellison to the Recreation and Parks Advisory Board for a 3-year term.
Second that.
Motion and a second. Any question or discussion? Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Commissioner Deeds,
Yes.
Commissioner Woody,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Stribling,
Yes.
Chairman McNamara.
Yes. Motion carries. Next is item 11. This is the Tukasi Water and Sewer Authority. This is a board. It's a governmental institution that was formed several decades ago. That was a combination, a combining of the Town of Silva's Water District, Sewer District, and Jackson counties to create a unified system that served several municipalities and county residents. There are there's actually 3 service districts right now. There's the one in the Whittier area. There's one in the Town of Silva general area, and then there's one in the Cashers area. The county has 2 appointments to this board that meets monthly, that oversees the wastewater treatment facilities as well as the water plant. Mr. Tom Sawyer is not able to serve again in this capacity as one of the county's appointees. I think Ron Mao, former board member here who lives in the Cullowhee area, is serving, representing Jackson County. And I would like to ask and go ahead and nominate Mark Jones to serve as Jackson County's representative from the southern end of the county. I think it's very important to have someone from the southern end of the county on this board, given the complexity of this, as Gail has mentioned already once, to the horse pasture
Yes.
Wastewater treatment facility. I know Commissioner Jones was on TWASA at the time. Was very instrumental in helping to secure some grants for that program. Has a long history with TWASA, and so I think there's a lot of value in having someone with his experience to serve on that, as well as represent the constituents as a longtime resident of the Cashiers area. So I'll put that forward as a motion to appoint Mark Jones as the county's representative for this vacancy. Is there a second?
Second.
Any question or discussion? Madam Clerk, if you call the roll, please.
Commissioner Stribling,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Woody,
Yes.
Commissioner Deeds,
Yes.
Chairman McMahon.
Yes, motion carries. I think, is the press still with us on screen? Yes, Beth is still with us. Beth, do you have any follow-up questions?
No questions, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We do not have need for closed session. So can someone make a motion right quick before Don comes up with one?
Make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.